Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Invercargill City Council. Welcome to those of you in the chamber and also those of you who are joining live stream from home. We have one person joining us on Teams. That's Ms. Lisa Thorne, but she probably will come in a little bit later in the meeting. We have two apologies today from Councillor Pottinger and from Councillor Toe McNaughton. Oh, and sorry, Councillor Stewart. Are there any declarations of interest? Oh, sorry. Yeah, will someone move that we accept those apologies? Thank you, Councillor Ludlow. Seconded, Councillor Crackett. Yeah. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? No, there are none. Thank you. So at this time, we always have a statement of reflection, and it actually falls to me today to do that. I want to talk a little bit about when this council was first formed. It was at the end of June, 28th of June 1871, actually. The Invercargill, for the first time, was declared a borough. Its population had climbed above 2,000, and it was declared a borough. Council elections were organised in July, and in August, the election results made William Wood the mayor. It was William Wood, as believed, who first established the tradition of the civic prayer. It's not quite sure whether the wording of the prayer changed over the years, but he seems to have established it right from the beginning. And for 150 years, every council meeting began with the civic prayer. Although religious, its prime accountability, the main purpose for doing it was just to reaffirm public accountability to the electorate, and really just to set a transition for members between being citizens to being councillors with all the accountabilities that brought. It was discontinued in 2022 in line with changes that were being made right around the country at that time. In fact, really since for the 10 years before that, as councils progressively moved away from saying civic prayers, as their cities or districts became more secular and more diverse. However, its words still resonate for me. So I thought that given that, this is the time at which the elections were held, first elections were held, leading to that first council and leading to William Wood establishing the first civic prayer, it was appropriate maybe at least once a year for us to be saying the civic prayer, really just remembering, because I think his words are very important, actually, and it's a shame to some extent that we've left him behind. So it was a tradition that council stood for it, and I'm going to ask you to do so again. Gracious God, grant us all needed guidance, wisdom and judgment as we face the tasks before us, and enable us to worthily discharge the sacred trust placed by the people in our hands. Amen. So it brings us to public forum. And we have June Trotter with us, I believe, to talk about Walkner Place. June, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship, City Councillors and Council staff. Ko June ahau no waiho pai, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you. Please look again at what we have. We have a warm, safe, convenient, fully staffed restroom with toilets and shower in Wagner Place. Please keep it open. Update it to become a vibrant, welcoming part of this transport hub where local, national and international tourists arrive. It is the centre for the arrival and departure of buses from Christchurch, Stewart Island via Bluff, and often Queenstown and Te Anau. Also for some tour buses. As a council, you pay a lot of money to promote our city. Yet we now greet visitors at our bus transport hub with only one Exelou toilet nearby when the library and Invercargill Central are closed. Not a great welcome to Invercargill. Travellers often judge a place by their toilets, or lack of them. We need public toilets that can cater for a full busload of passengers. The reputation of our city is so important. Good reputations are hard to build up and very easy to lose in our world of instant online communications. Would it be possible to extend the hours in the morning, opening at 8 o'clock instead of 10? It would then be open for passengers before their departure on the intercity bus at 8:25. It would also be earlier for people who don't have access to a shower. The supervising staff at Wagner Place restroom are fantastic, welcoming to all who use the facility. They have developed respectful relationships with people in our homeless community and the wider community. If the facility is closed, there would be a marked sense of loss of community for many people. Wagner Place is part of our Invercargill's identity, with much of the land gifted by Mrs. Mabel Wagner. It was gifted for the people. Please delay your final decision-making, refinding a suitable alternative shower and closing our facility, until at least after the busy summer season, and then re-evaluate it. The Wagner Place restroom is one of our city's taonga. Please respect it, care for it, and keep it open. What is the most important thing in the world? He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you. Are there any questions for June? Yes, Andrea.
Thank you, Your Worship. Ngā mihi nui I te kōrero, June. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing that. Can you tell us a little bit about your connection? Are you involved? Do you support any of the travellers that come in or users, or are you just concerned ratepayer, or where do you fit in?
I have campaigned for Wagner Place for quite a long time when the ILT was going to put a pop-up bar there, and then also about the buses going through for Distinction Hotel. So it has, initially it was a public open space, and I valued that. I have had contact with people who are homeless personally, and I go to bed at night and I think of people out in that cold who are homeless. So I think having a shower available for people who don't have a home is a really good move, and I really appreciate that the council has kept the Wagner Place open until now, the restrooms. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Demery.
Yeah, thanks, Ken, and good to see you again, June.
Thank you.
The challenge I take out of what you're saying to us is, this is more than just, toilets and shares. This is about, what functionality it provides to people that visit our city. And so, you know, I think that's the challenge you're laying down to us today. Would that be fair? I've got to make it a question, so that's why I've asked you.
So the question is, so what's the question, sorry?
So, you know, I feel as though perhaps council or myself maybe has narrowed it on, it's just about toilets and showers. What I hear you're saying to us is think more widely about what functionality the toilets and showers provide to our city in terms of welcoming visitors in a central place where, you know, as you say, the 8:25 bus leaves from or close by. So the challenge you're putting down to us is, you know, think more widely than just toilets and showers about what the place.
Yes, I do. And I think if you closed the toilets and showers, then it would be very, very difficult to open them again. I think that the building sits really nicely where it is. The trees, especially in the summertime, you've got pretty hot weather, and the trees and seats I think it fits really well there. I think perhaps we do have to look in the wider vision and further on in time. And I guess I'm basically saying, please don't make a hasty decision. And concerning the possible venue that is being looked at on D Street, just along from the library, I have great hesitations that people would actually use it there because it's very visible, and they would be very conspicuous that they are going in for a shower, perhaps. I think also, can I also say that people like using the Wagner Place toilets? I don't see many people using that Exeloo, and so just another point.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, June, I know you've obviously been keeping up with Council's discussions on this, so I'm sure you know where it sits, but just to tell you again, so Council have put in the budget for next year that the toilets and showers will remain open for all of next financial year, or this financial year.
Thank you.
In the meantime, staff will continue to look for alternatives. It's not easy to find alternatives to that. What Council have said, though, is that if there are no alternatives, then Wagner Place would remain. It's only if we find a good alternative to that that we would, we would take a final decision on that block. And I do know that what you've said is true, that people also see it as a place to gather, a place for fellowship. Maybe if they weren't there, they would be going into the library, I don't know, but it does serve more of a purpose than just to shower in the toilet. So Council, whenever we discuss this, actually discuss that all the time, so we absolutely understand it. But look, I really appreciate you coming in, speaking to us. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so we will come to the minutes of the meeting of Council held on the 23rd of June. Will someone move that those be confirmed? Thank you, Councillor Dermody. Seconded, Councillor De Vries. He said looking to his left.
I'm on this. Okay.
Is there any discussion of those? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. We come to the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of Council held on the 30th of June. Will someone move that we receive those? Thank you, Councillor Broad. Seconded by Councillor Bond. Is there any discussion of those? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Come then to the minutes of the Water Committee meeting held on Tuesday, the 7th of July, and the recommendations that are attached to that. Councillor... Sorry,
Sorry,
Councillor
I had and I hope it's okay to ask a question before we take that, because I just wanted to clarify the number that has been quoted in there. It's different to the reports that came through around the Bluff wastewater treatment plant.
Well, let's have it moved and seconded, and then we'll take questions. So, Councillor Dermody, you moved, seconded by Councillor Boyle. Sorry. seconded by Councillor Boyle, and we'll open it for questions and discussion. So Councillor De Vries, do you want to say specifically which number?
Yeah, and the, where it talks about the Bluff Discharge Consent Project, I think it's got $5.86 million quoted. In the Water Committee papers, that project was 6.86 million, and I just want to get some clarity around the difference in the figures.
The difference between 5.86 and 6.86?
Yeah, I know that's
I
1 million, but
Can anybody comment on that?
why it's different in the recommendation to the paper?
Can anybody comment on that? Matt?
Through South Chair, I'd have to verify that, sorry Councillor, so I can't answer that as it sits at the moment.
Yeah. I must admit my recollection is 5.86, but it might be that the number's been, it could just be a typo someplace, Councillor De Vries.
So just through South Chair, 5.86 was also the number that was front and centre in my mind, but again,
Yeah.
I need to verify that.
I thought you were actually going to ask Councillor De Vries if there was a wrong decimal point in the cost of the Clifton one, but I'm afraid not. I'm afraid it is indeed 246 million.
Yes, no, and I understand that. I guess, are we able to get clarity on that today? Can we look back on those papers?
Right, we can look it up quite easily, I guess. But it's the difference between 5.86 and 6.86 that you're...
Yeah, which could be the slip of a finger, across the keyboard.
So, I mean, all we're actually doing here is approving the inclusion of the interim positions. We're not actually approving the number at this point. We're just... Anyway, we have that moved and seconded. Councillor De Vries, we will get that clarified, and if necessary, we can change the number in the minutes if it's incorrect. Will all those, any other questions? Yes, Councillor Crackett.
Thank you. Mayor Campbell, I was wiggling my finger quite energetically there. My question is around, so this committee is one that I sit on, and unfortunately I was an apology for this, as you all know. The discussion around including the wetland and the recommendations it has recommended council for the Bluff Discharge Consent Project, including high energy coastal. Just wanted some clarity from officers around whether or not that omits the wetland portion from also being investigated.
Through South Chair, sorry Councillor, can you please repeat the question? Sorry.
So I noted in the minutes here that because this was a meeting that I was unfortunately an apology to, of a committee that I sit on, and as you know, that there's been quite a lot of discussions around the wetland portion of the Bluff Discharge Consent, and I just noted in the recommendation there that it says Bluff Discharge Consent Project including high energy coastal. I just wanted to make sure that that doesn't omit us also prospecting the wetland component.
That is correct.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, so we are asked to receive those minutes. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried.
I'm against, sorry.
I'm
can
sorry,
I have
Councillor De Vries?
that? Yeah, no, I'm just saying I wanted to vote against it because we don't have the clarity on the figure, and I'm not comfortable with the removal of the wetland.
Okay, you'd not come, well, that's a different matter, but the number, 5.86 or 6.86, has it been?
We're about 10 minutes away from verifying that.
Okay, so subject to that number, bear in mind that this is a minute of what was discussed at that meeting.
So to that point though, it is confirming the minutes, but the recommendations come through to council. So if we were to be uncomfortable with one of those recommendations, we would be asking for that to either be held until we could find further information, or have a debate on whether or not that passes or not. So I know that, I mean, you've already kind of pressed go, but sometimes when some of these questions are being asked, especially around clarity of information, it could be worth coming back to that resolution rather than just continuing on.
You clarify?
Through yourself, Chair, we've got an answer to that question now if you'd like us to update it.
Yes, please.
Through South Chair, 5.86 is the correct figure. The 6 million reference is an error.
Okay. Okay. Okay, this is all I'll ask again. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So we have the minutes of the Infrastructure and Growth Committee meeting held on the 7th of July.
I am happy
And-
to.
And there are recommendations to council for that too. You moving both the minutes?
Actually, I would defer this one to Councillor De Vries,
Oh, of
as
course.
she was chair of the day.
Yeah, I was chairing and I'm happy to move the recommendations that we've got up there.
Okay, so is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Is there any discussion of those? All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So then we have the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 14th of July. Will someone move that we receive those? Thank you, Councillor Dermody, seconded by Councillor Crackett. Is there any discussion of those? If not, all those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Then we have the minutes of the Bluff Community Board meeting held on Monday the 20th of July with a recommendation to council. Two recommendations to council. Councillor Dermody, were you there?
Yes, I was, yeah, and I'll move those, both recommendations as well, yeah.
Okay. Will someone second?
Second at pro forma.
Thank you. Councillor Ludlow, is there any discussion of that? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Brings us to item 11, decisions on plan change 2. Everybody, just give me a second to... Okay, so we have the decision on plan change 2, and speaking to that, we have Lisa Thorne, who is joining us on Teams. Are you there, Lisa?
Kia ora koutou. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you. So
Wonderful.
the floor's yours.
Thank you. So the paper that you all have in front of you essentially seeks to do two things. The first is to update you on the decisions released for the plan change and to seek delegation to make any minor amendments to the plan change. So you may recall that in January this year, Plan Change 2, which is the Housing and Code of Practice plan change, was publicly notified. Submissions were called and the hearing was held in May of this year. Since that time, the hearing panel released their decision in mid-July, and that decision period is now open for anybody who submitted on the plan change to lodge an appeal. That appeal period closes in a few weeks' time. I think it's in your paper, I think it's the 24th of August. So we're currently in a bit of a wait and see to see if we have any appeals that are received. Once that appeal period has closed, if no appeals on the plan change have been received, then there will be another subsequent report that will be taken to council to make the plan change operative. That process is essentially integrating it into the district plan and calling it complete. If an appeal on the plan change is received, then there will be a report that goes to council to recommend the best course of action in seeking to address or resolve that appeal. Typically, the first the first thing that we would likely try with any appeal is mediation. So that can either be informal mediation between the parties or court-assisted mediation where a facilitator is appointed to assist that. There were only 19 submissions to the plan change, so that reduces the likelihood of appeal, but we'll be able to report back on that with some certainty after the 24th. The recommendation in the paper that relates to seeking delegation for changes of minor effect. That's essentially just a request, because it isn't currently covered in Council's delegation manuals, to delegate that decision making to the Group Manager Consenting and Environment, Jonathan Shaw. What that essentially means is if there are any small errors such as typographical errors or errors in rule numbering, things of minor effect, we don't need to go through a plan change process to fix them. Jonathan Shaw would essentially have delegated authority to make the call to make those necessary updates. It's pretty common when we are integrating a plan change into a district plan to have a few formatting and typographical tidy ups. So that's the process in a nutshell. You'll probably all remember that the purpose of Plan Change 2 is to better enable medium density housing in the residential 1A zone. So actually have legal effect now. That's all live. It sits alongside the current district plan rules, but once the appeal period closes, if there are no appeals, then the plan change is effectively operative and forms part of your district plan. Ready to take any questions on that.
Thank you. I'm sure you will have some, Lisa. A couple from me first. Is there, so is it the case then that it would come back to the September council meeting for final ratification, or will it be in time for the August meeting?
It would not be in time for August. It would need to be September.
Okay, so it'll be September. Is there, do we know if there's a queue at the door of developers waiting to take that opportunity, or have we not heard anything in that respect?
Yes, I understand at least one instance I'm aware of, that the council planners are in pre-application talks with developers around constructing medium density housing, that the plan change provisions were favourable to them and they were waiting until the decision was released before they lodged their application.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ludlow?
Thanks, Mayor Campbell. So this is the penultimate stage in a process that we started towards the end of the term for the previous council. The pre-consultation was very engaging for the perspective of two of our hearings commissioners. It was their first process under the RMA decision-making framework, and it's gone exceptionally well. We were chaired by Megan Mackay and very ably assisted by Lisa. And so I'm happy to move the two recommendations and look forward to the next one in September. Fingers crossed.
Thank you. Is there any other questions before we take a seconder? Will someone say, sorry, your question, Councillor Broad.
Yeah, thanks for the report. Thanks, Chair. I guess with the goal being enabling medium density housing, I know we'll have data that is collected, but do we have any specific kind of measures that might help us kind of reflect or test whether this has activated the housing market, whether that be kind of reporting back through to us, or I guess that's the exciting part, right, is that hopefully this activates what its goal is? Outside of just core data, do we have a mechanic that might circle back to us to see?
So through you, Chair, we don't have a specific measure, but what I'm hearing is council would have a interest in understanding how successful it's been once it's in place, and we could certainly bring a paper up. I would suggest probably at least 3 to 4 months once it's been ratified at the September council meeting.
Yeah, I thought like 12 months, but that would be perfect, something that comes back, I guess.
Good.
I think there'd be more
Thank
tangible results after 12.
Yeah, so it could be 12.
Councillor Bond, were you seconding or were you asking a question?
I was seconding it.
You seconded. Okay. Is there any other discussion? So, yes, Councillor Crackett.
Just a really quick question. If there, in such case where there is an appeal, given that 3 councillors were on the hearings panel, is it the same 3 councillors that go through that process, or what's the next step?
I can answer that if you like.
Yes, please.
So typically the next step for the appeal process would be to appoint a planner and legal counsel to represent council's position through mediation. So that would typically, with most appeal processes for plan changes, it would look like a report would typically go up to council. Sometimes that would be public excluded as to seeking delegation as to the extent to which those representing council in mediation can resolve any appeals through consent order. And then informal mediation is typically the first step. So that is typically face-to-face, or that can be online through Teams. If there is mutual agreement between the parties, then that would formally be taken through council before it would be sent to the Environment Court, that would then issue a consent order to resolve the appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Takes us to tab 12, the long-term plan capital programme. Now, this is a very long paper, very dense paper, but of course we have seen all of this before. This was the subject, Rhiannon, wasn't it, of the workshop that we had 2 or 3 weeks ago. So council has actually worked through this already. This is bringing it back to council for, basically, you heard what was said at the workshop, and this is bringing it back for ratification. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I'll just speak to a couple of process points if it's helpful. First of all, just noting that the core program has been scored and refined by ELT, and they present that interim position, and that's what recommendation 2 is speaking to. Recommendation 3 deals to the first 10 years of the plan, and for those items which are either strategic projects or where there is a proposed level of service change. And then resolution 4, just noting that for those items where perhaps council either doesn't want to proceed or puts a prioritisation that's later in the programme. At the moment, everything is in years 11 to 30. If council wished to indicate that something was not a priority at all and would rather it be removed from the programme, then you could do that also. Resolution 5 speaks to the consultation options for Rugby Park, and then resolution 6 we can note the total for the capital programme. If it is based on the report, it's outlined in the financial implications section, and I have provided that through to the governance team, but we can note any changes, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, questions to Rhiannon? There are none. Sorry, Councillor Broad.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Rhiannon. Just looking at those 2, or probably 2 play strategy partnership opportunities, and I'm an advocate for those coming forward, but I was just wondering, is there any risk to those partnerships being successful or happening if they are delayed by this much? And particularly the Kiwi Skips partnership is a significant pushback. Is that appetite at risk?
So following the workshop that you all had, I did seek feedback from all the managers around the timing, and so actually I should have mentioned that in the introduction, that for a couple, a minor suggested a change to timing has been made, so you can be sure that everything in this report aligns with what the managers believe is achievable. For example, the water tower was recommended just to be done slightly earlier, and the other one was the Civic Theatre. The recommendation of the team, which is included in the report, is that it does need to be done as a matter of a priority, the HVAC and other systems in this building. Those were the 2 where the recommended, the interim position at the end of the workshop is different to what's in this report.
So just remind us, Rhiannon, we get another go at this, don't we? This is us approving the interim position. The final position with respect to the long-term plan will be for another time.
Yes, very much, Your Worship. This is an interim position to enable the team to continue with the remainder of the process. The next very important step of which will be considering funding and factors like deliverability and affordability further. So you will see this again in several times up now till November, when it's finalised ahead of audit.
So there will be an opportunity to shuffle and change and omit or add to this list. Councillor Crackett?
Just the 3R in the list of recommendations says that the Stirling Point improvements are 1 million, but on page 187, it states that they are 3.2 million, so I wondered if that was just a typo. And they are 3.2 million on page 187. It says 3.2 million capital expenditure 2731, but in the recommendations it says 3R, Sterling Point improvements, 1 million capital expenditure.
The 1 million is the correct figure. Just yeah, that is a typo. Apologies. Within the body of the report, the recommendation is correct.
Well spotted.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor De Vries.
Oh, I did have, sorry, I'm now scrolling to try and find maybe an answer, but I'll just ask Rhiannon, and apologies if it is in the report, but I just couldn't see it quickly. The 3T, the Christmas and Matariki festive lights, it's got 2 years there, 2030, 2031, 2035, 2036. Is that for 2 purchases, or like to basically to renew any lights that were purchased in 2030? We might look at renewing them in 2035, or is that we could purchase them in 2030 or 2035?
Through you, Chair, that's the former. It's a proposed renewal cycle, recognising it as an interim position and further work would be done.
It is noticeable, though, that there's actually 2 completely distinct dates for, a single project. So, obviously we're going to have to work through that as we move forward.
Yeah, and sorry, just another question there, Your Worship, is around the passenger transport improvements, which is the bus shelters, and which I know we had the rangatahi from South Alive come in and talk to us about that project and how important it was for them to see improvements on our bus shelters. So we had, I believe, agreed to a pilot or a trial upgrade. So this is above that trial?
So the paper's just noting you've already made that decision. That's why no more additional budget, because it's already been allocated.
Okay, thank you. So, look, just to clarify, particularly for people watching, we have I suppose you could, it's not quite a long list because we started with a long list and it's been pared back through a workshop. We now have a list of things that we believe we really need to do. However, there's 2 other filters that's got to go through. The first one is either whether it's deliverable, whether it actually physically can be done, given the number of projects that there are on the list. And the second one, of course, is whether it's affordable by ratepayers. So, it all has to go through that, all has to go through those 2 filters. And then, of course, we have another go at looking at the order in which things are done. But this is very much an interim position. Councillor De Vries.
Thank you, Worship, and I'm sorry for asking another question. I'm just wanting some clarity, and you've made some good points there about this being an interim position, and how much we have to consider the rates impact.
Yeah.
Would we or could we expect at some stage to get a report back from staff around assets that may be ready for disposal or recycling in order to offset some of the costs of the projects outlined in this interim position?
Michael.
Yeah, through yourself, Chair, I'll hand over to my GM of Finance and Assurance.
Through you, Chair. That is the next step. It's about understanding what we need. Then we go through to the next step is funding, which will also consider asset sales for asset recycling to bring proceeds through to meet some of the costs within this.
I love it. And would we be able to consider, I guess, some of the projects will probably have a bit of a special interest value, in particular something like the water tower. Would we have, as a council, the ability to essentially underwrite the full cost of that project, but seek partnership opportunities or philanthropic funding to support that from different groups?
Through you, Chair, we can, and that would be a typical approach. We have limited philanthropic avenues because many people don't give money to councils.
I mean, we would have to include the full amount in the long-term plan anyway, and if we did manage to get philanthropic support, then that would be, you know, a bonus. But unless you actually have it committed, then you cannot include it in the LTP. So if somebody said, well, you know, we'll do this, then you can include it. But you cannot just suppose that somebody might come forward with money in the plan. So inevitably, I think, whatever goes through does end up going through at the full amount, and it's a bonus, really, if we can find partners to help with the cost.
Get a real catch-22, Your Worship, because, I mean, essentially it would be, there'll be some groups that would love to have saved the water tower at a much earlier stage than now, and perhaps would have, you know, come along to support that. But if we're kind of already providing the guarantee that we'll fund it, and same with the likes of Rugby Park, you know, to understand there'll be, you know, interest groups from around the whole of Southland that would probably get behind rebuilding Rugby Park or Southland Outdoor Stadium in some shape or form. But if we're already underwriting the whole 18 million or whatever we choose to move forward with, are we removing that opportunity to allow others to make a contribution?
But sort of them's the rules, Andrew. That's the way we've got to do it, unfortunately. I mean, if we can find partners later, then, you know, that's wonderful. But we cannot assume that we're going to find partners when we do the LTP. But I take it, obviously, I take your point. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so we'll take numbers 1 and 2 first. Will someone move that we receive the report and note the proposed interim non-waters core renewals programme? Thank you, Councillor Bond, and seconded Councillor Dermody. Any other discussion? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
So I'll take number 3 altogether, bearing in mind that this is the output of the workshop which we did a few weeks ago. So will someone move that we approve, what's the word, that we confirm, just hold on a second, confirm the following. Okay, so I've got to do those. No, I can do them all at the same time, can't I? Will someone move that we confirm all of numbers A to U as being the interim position? Thank you, Councillor Bond. Councillor Boyle, seconded by Councillor Broad. Any other discussion? Councillor Crackett.
Thank you. Just in relation to the outdoor stadia, and this was probably a question more for Rex. Just the way that well, I agree that it absolutely is a consultation issue, but the conversations that we had aren't necessarily reflected exactly in the recommendations, and that I believe what Council had scoped or talked about scoping as part of that project was the incorporation of Splash Palace and a whole master planning I guess, outdoor leisure precinct or leisure precinct for that whole area, because they are 2 council-owned facilities that need investment over time, that sit side by side, and conversations around the traffic flow and how people actually access both. If we're going to invest in one, of course, we are also continuing to invest in Splash Palace. It makes a whole lot of sense to have a look at what that master planning looks like across that whole area. And I guess fundamentally the question is, that was sort of the intent of looking at that whole area, but the recommendations as they stand, I don't think that they quite necessarily communicate that that's the intent to the community. So question is, if we pass this today, okay, and there's multiple questions in there. It's the same question, 4 different ways, effectively. Yeah, we'll just, I'll leave it at that then.
Is that covered at all? I don't think it is, Councillor Crackett, but I'm just wondering if your point is covered by item 5?
Bring on item 3.
It doesn't incorporate the master
No, it doesn't
planning.
mention the pool.
No, it doesn't mention the pool, and it doesn't mention the traffic potential changes, and it doesn't change the interactivity with the public and the conjoining of them both. Like there's a massive piece missing there. It just says, hey, look, we're going to invest in Rugby Park. rather than the whole area.
Through you, Chair, if I can. So my recollection of the workshop is A, is as it stood, but B, is the 3B is where the Splash Palace additional pool project scoping is to incorporate the master planning exercise as well. And that will be incorporated. I already started that conversation with the staff involved with that. And so when the Splash Palace additional pool project scoping work is undertaken, it will also include the master planning exercise. If you appreciate, the outdoor stadium rugby park option is with respect to the expenditure associated with that is with respect to basically the stadia and the peripheral space around the playing field area, the terrace, the west end where the proposed demolition of the scoreboard and old metal building, etc., is where the master planning process will come in, as well as at the east end, looking at potential new entryways and exitways from or into and from Splash Palace will also be incorporated into that, hence why it's been tied up into Part B, the Splash Palace additional pool project scoping exercise. And I'd be happy to add to that and a leisure precinct so if we were to do anything based on what Councillor Crackett said, which I support, it would be around recommendation B, which the Splash Palace additional pool project scoping and leisure area precinct master plan process.
Following on from that, if I may, Chair, absolutely endorse what you've said there, and I just think that it's a really important piece to add to the conversation for our community, because unless the understanding is that that whole area will be scoped together, then I think it's a harder conversation to have.
Through you, Chair, if I can again, I totally agree, Councillor Crackett, and think that it actually adds immense value to both of A and B, but to capture the fact that we will be undertaking a master planning exercise as part of B, then supports exactly what you're talking about. So really endorse what you're saying. Thank you.
So just so that I understand it, you're both in vigorous agreement, but as I read it, they are sort of sequential projects in that, correct me if I'm wrong, in that the repair to Rugby Park is going to be done soon. So we're asked in question in number 5 whether we wish to not do it at all, whether we wish to do it immediately, or whether we wish to do it over the next 3 years. And that would be done. And then as part of 3B, we are then looking at Splash Palace, and the question of how that can be better integrated into Rugby Park would be looked at that point. I mean, they're kind of sequential, except that the repair to Rugby Park is going to be done. We cannot wait for the whole project to be done because it's going to be in a different timeline. That's how I would read it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That's absolutely the intent and how it is read. The part that I'm getting caught up in is how the only one that's really stated in the report here that would go out for obvious consultation is whether or not we actually redevelop Rugby Park in itself. And I think that for the wider conversation to be had with the community, or the real conversation of value, or what the community would get of value out of it, is understanding that the Splash Palace precinct, or the Splash Palace additional pool project and the wider area master plan would be done, rather than just the individual Rugby Park building itself. So
can I just provide some clarity? The Rugby Park project, as the Mayor says, is a stadia project, as basically looking at, based on the building condition assessment report of the grandstand and the stadia, requires work to be done. Simultaneously or concurrently, in your words, Mayor, the Splash Palace additional pool project scoping project is scheduled to be undertaken in year 1. So this time next year, the Splash Palace additional pool project scoping will be starting to be developed, which will include the master plan for the leisure precinct area. The stadium project will, if it gets approved through this process, will also start in year one, in terms of, I suppose, dealing with the building condition assessment report issues that were identified. And so that happens, the master, just seeking clarification, or that my understanding is correct here, the master planning exercise as to be added or incorporated into the additional pool project scoping will be another piece of consultation work that will occur after the LTP has been adopted. So the master plan process that will be undertaken in 27-28 will be happening at the same time as the start of the redevelopment of the stadia.
I wonder then whether the issue with 3B, in fact the issue that Councillor Crackett's raised overall, is that it's actually too narrow, just describing it as an additional pool project. Would it be better to describe it as the precinct master plan project?
Going back to what I said, that's what I would like to be included or added into B, would be something along the lines of leisure precinct master plan exercise, as well as, Splash Palace additional pool project scoping and leisure precinct master plan process.
So is that all included in the 155,000?
We will make it happen.
Okay, so why don't we I think the additional pool is part of the precinct, isn't it? Precinct master plan. So, I don't
Yes,
think
I agree. Okay, so
I
flip
think
it round.
if we change the words to Splash Palace precinct master plan scoping, then that probably covers it. Can we do that, Rhiannon? Is that Yeah, I think you're nodding.
Yes.
Okay. Would you be happier with that, Councillor Crackett?
Yes, no, I would. I just think... For
I
us
understand the point.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite capture it. Okay, Councillor Boyle.
Probably just in addition to what we've already decided, but it was very clear from the workshop that we saw that as a priority, that we really wanted to get on and get that scoped, because we see it as a whole big picture.
Okay.
We wanted to do it sooner rather than later.
Well, I think we're talking about 2027, which is, yeah. Okay, so we have, yes. Okay, so we are going to change the wording of 3B to the Splash Palace Precinct Master Plan scoping with the same number. Will someone move that we make that change? Councillor Crackett, do you want to move that? Okay, thank you. Seconded by, thank you, Councillor Broad. Any discussion? All those in favour? Yeah, Councillor De Vries.
I just want to ask a question around what happens if, through the LTP consultation, that there is not a preference to move forward with the rebuild of Rugby Park, and how that would impact this project. Would it be agile enough to be able to adapt to a make good? That's not my preference. That's the reality. This is what happens through consultation.
I think it's a little bit too what if at this point. I think it opens up all sorts of different possibilities as you move to that. I don't think it's really answerable at this point.
Through yourself, Chair, because of the sequence in relation to a consultation and then the scoping exercise, then I don't think that's a problem. You'll have an outcome from the consultation.
Okay, so we have a move in a second. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. So we have now got that change to 3B. With that change, will someone move that we approve all of A to U? Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Seconded, Councillor Broad. I think I saw him nodding. Any other discussion? All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Then we have item 4, which are those projects that we felt were valuable, but that we felt would need to be pushed out a little bit further beyond year 10. So, any discussion of those? So will someone move that? Yes, Councillor De Vries.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's interesting that a lot of those ones, I believe, would, particularly around the town centre upgrades, we would probably be hoping to see some additional investment, it's chicken and egg maybe, additional investment from business owners around their own properties and, you know, on street frontages and things like that, which comes first. But that would help us to understand the priorities for that in, you know, year 11 to 30.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So will someone move that we confirm that those items will be beyond year 10? Thank you, Councillor Dermody. Seconded. Write it down. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So it takes us to number 5, where we are asked to decide which should be our preferred option for consultation. So I'm right in thinking, Rhiannon, that all 3 go for consultation, but we have to express a preferred position.
All 3 are recommended, yes, for consultation, and we would need council's preferred position. That would be what would be included in the budget, and I'll just take this opportunity to note that we do expect these numbers to change slightly as we get closer to the end of the process.
So you're looking for a decision on those today?
Correct.
Okay. So fundamentally, the 3 are either we don't do it at all, or secondly, we do it more or less right away, or thirdly, we spread it over a slightly longer period at greater cost. So
I'll move, Mayor Campbell, that option 2 is our preferred option.
B.
B.
Yep. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Dermody. Is there any discussion of that? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, so it means that when that item goes to public consultation, council will, council's preferred position will be stated that that project is done in between 2027 and 2029. Thank you. And then we are okay. So we are asked to note the total proposed interim capital programme position, which is $915 million over 10 years. So we're asked to note that. Obviously, that is then subject to, as we go through the next phase, decisions on the 2 things I mentioned before, how much of that can physically be done, because there are only so many engineers, and how much of that is affordable by ratepayers. So it does pass through those 2 filters, as well as changes that we might make, decisions that we might make through the period on the projects themselves. So anyway, will someone move that we note, and it's just for noting, that proposed interim capital programme? Thank you, Councillor Boyle, and seconded by Councillor Dermody. Is there any other discussion? All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Rhiannon, remind me, the capital 10-year capital programme in the last LTP was about the same, wasn't it? As I recall, it was just a fraction under $1 billion.
I can just tell you those. Apologies, just wait. My system wants to log me back in. The details are in the paper under financial implications, the exact numbers for the current plan.
Pretty sure it was. So despite the fact that there's
slightly higher.
Pardon?
It is slightly higher, this interim position, but we would expect that to come down slightly.
Yep.
So in the 24 to 34 long-term plan, there was 842 million across 10 years and 1.9 billion across 30 years. So you've got slightly more coming forward, and that is those increased numbers for Clifton primarily.
As opposed to the 900 and something million that we're talking about now.
Correct.
It was how much last time?
842 in the
Okay.
first 10 years,
Okay.
and 1.9 in the whole 30, and now we're at 915 in the 10 years, but slightly lower at 1.8 in the whole plan.
Okay, and that's the interim position, and we've got to have a go at it as we go through the LTP. Okay, thank you. I think that completes that paper, doesn't it? It all takes us to tab 13, Economic Development Activity. And Rhiannon, you're speaking to this again?
I am. So again, this is a long-term plan paper to do with the process in terms of setting some levels of service for the economic development activity. So the Local Government Systems Improvement Bill is looking at refining how councils talk about the activities of council in order to there be greater consistency across the country to enable improved benchmarking. So therefore economic development would be an activity within the long-term plan separately. So the report includes some proposed levels of service for the activity. These are based on the many discussions that councils had through this long-term planning process, as well as through the discussions with Great South as part of the levels, the letter of expectation process. It's important to note that the draft key performance indicators are an early draft and they would be expected to change based on contracting. And I'm happy to take any questions.
No questions to Rhiannon? There are none. I think we can take numbers 1 to 6 at the same time. Actually, will someone move that we receive that report, this report, that we confirm the levels of service that are listed in numbers A to F, that we note that the city centre events are recommended to be part of the events and venues festival activity, that we note the key performance indicators, that we note a draft activity plan will be brought to council in December for confirmation, and we note that funding for this activity will be provided to council in August 26. So will someone move all of those? Thank you, Councillor Demery. Seconded by Councillor De Vries. Is there any other discussion? All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Takes us to the Health, Safety and Wellbeing report. Trudy, so you're it this month.
Yes, Karina's not available today, Mayor Campbell. So probably of note to the council is the changes to legislation that are coming through, but just noting that will mainly impact smaller organisations as opposed to ourselves. We remain in our current state. There were 2 high potential incidents involving abusive behaviour towards employees. This has been followed through with the correct processes, but it did have the involvement of police. And we just got a little bit more around what is involved in health and safety training from a question from last time, just in terms of it really does depend on the job that you do. Obviously, for those of us sitting in the chamber here, there's less risks than those of us in the field who might be using equipment or machinery and things like that.
Any questions to Trudy? So we are asked to receive the report. Will someone move that we receive it? Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Seconded by Councillor Broad. Is there any other discussion? All those in favour say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Brings us to the Local Government New Zealand remits for annual general meeting. So, who's speaking to this? Well, Michael's not, so it's Michael Day speaking to it.
Thank you. Through yourself, Chair. I've got nothing significant to add to the report, except you'll need to work through each of the individual remits one at a time to give an indication to those that are voting at the LGNZ session of the annual general meeting to whether you're for or against as a council in relation to all of the different remits. Happy to answer any questions as we go through.
Okay, so there are a number of remits. We're asked to do two things. Firstly, whether we support or do not support that remit, and secondly, what priority we would place on it. So basically, low, high, and medium. In each case, staff have gone through and made a recommendation against each remit, which we can either follow or not. So if we take, probably the best thing is to work through the remits one at a time. So remit 1 is priorities for Dog Control Act reform, which is on page 3 of that report, page 376 of board books. Is there any discussion of that?
Move 4.
Councillor Crockett? Pardon?
4.
You're moving
Moving
4?
that.
Well, let's see if there's any discussion. No. You're moving 4, Councillor Ludlow. Seconded, I think, by Councillor Crockett. Is that what you were doing? So we are asked to support that with a high priority. Any discussion around the priority level? Okay. So are you moving, Councillor Ludlow, that it be recommended that that remit is supported with a high priority?
Yes, based on the number of incidents that are being dealt with across the country.
And Councillor Crockett, you seconded. You happy with the high? Any discussion? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. So remit 1 we support with a high priority. Remit 2 is for improved regulation of vape retailers. In this case, it is also recommended by officers that the remit be supported and that the priority be medium-high. Not quite sure you get a choice of medium-high, do you? Is that 3
I'll move it.
questions? Yes, sir. Oh, you're moving, Councillor Boyle?
I
And
second.
seconded by Councillor Bond. Is there any discussion of that? So are you moving that it is, we support it, but also that it should have medium-high priority? Okay, no others. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Remit number 3, financial support for government reform implementation costs. And of course, we have a truckload of reform which is hitting us. And
very, very high.
Support. It's
we
unanimous.
are hopeful that the government will pay for the fuel. I suspect that our hope will be in vain, but anyway, we hope that. So, officer's recommendation is to support this remit and that it receives a high priority. Did you just move that, Councillor Deminy?
Karen did not.
Seconded by Darren. All those in favour say aye.
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 The louder you shout, the higher the priority.
Yeah, sorry,
Thank
that's
you.
okay for me.
Remit 4, removal of representation, review requirements during simplifying local government reform. So this is, do you wish to speak to that, Michael? Actually, just explain what we're...
Through yourself, Chair, this is highlighting the LGNZ's work associated to removal of having to do representation reviews as part of the, while we're going through the local government simplification reform. We're highlighting in here there's both, from our perspective, there's both an advantage and disadvantage in relation to that. You're engaging with the community in relation to representation as part of that representation review. But however, if you do proceed down a simplification process, then that would be work that we won't have had to have conducted as part of that. We would have done it separately as part of the that process. So just highlighting that is under current legislation that it would still be required and continue to act if we were in our existing structures. The other item to highlight from a council perspective in Southland is, of course, the LGC process as well as undertaking. So that is a to other points, that is a legislative process currently underway and does also impact in relation to the representation component. So we're kind of caught in two positions there. But noting that our advice is to continue to support this because it has a wider remit than just Southland.
So just to clarify for me then, Michael, if we were not part of the Head Start process and we were in the backstop, or if we continued through the LGC process and followed that, then next term would continue to be, we would continue to be Invercargill City Council, wouldn't we?
Through yourself, Chair, if you ended up in a backstop process, highly likely to still have an Invercargill City Council and have to have had a representation review. It's if you're in the Head Start process and successful based on that process timelines. And if the LGC process meets its timelines, then both of those would mean the representation review would not have been required at that time. It would come as part of those two processes.
Yeah, again, just to clarify for me and probably for others, if the LGC process were followed through and they came to a decision, it would not actually apply at the 2028 election, would it? Wouldn't it be the following election? So either the LGC process or the backstop, next term we would still be Invercargill City Council, and therefore the representation review would be required. It's only through the Head Start process that it may be different in 2028, and therefore the representation review would be, you could say, redundant.
Through yourself, Chair, I can't actually confirm that with the LGC process because the LGC process has two parts it could do. It could introduce commissioners into the final recommendation or not. But I'll just double check with my governance person, see if we've got advice on that. Sorry, can we get some advice in relation to the LGC process and whether it would confirm that in 2028 we would need the representation review or not?
We do. Regardless, so the LGC process continues on as normal. We'd already tried to submit on that for not having to progress that forward, and that had been declined.
And the poll's likely to be in May or June.
Okay, so that fits the recommendation of officers in the paper, which is in support of the remit in principle, but believe it should only focus on Head Start councils only. The reason being because other councils would be continuing in their current form, we would expect through 2028 to 2031. Councillor De Vries.
Oh, sorry. I think part of my question has been asked already, but I think I was wanting to know, and we probably can't do this at this stage, but are there other aspects of this reform process that would be better to be advocated for removing? Instead of representation review, are there other things in the processes that council has to undertake that would be better to include in that remit? And we probably are not able to amend a remit.
The remit's
I'm
been
assuming.
lodged.
Yeah, they've been lodged.
We can't change them.
Okay, never mind.
I think the answer is many things, but
So why stop at this?
too late. Okay, so will someone move that we support the remit in principle, but believe it should focus on Head Start councils only, and that it should receive a lower priority rating? Thank you, Councillor Bond, seconded by Councillor Broad. So have you got a question, Councillor Crackett?
I just want to totally take the points of the conversation, but the remit process and the AGM process allows for voting either for or against. Yeah. So we're discussion here is now adding for an in principle because of X, Y, Z. We're not actually able to do that. So I just
I'll
want
make it
to
simpler.
be definitively that just yes, we are for it.
So so the motion then is that we support the remit, but would give it a lower priority rating.
may I? Mine would be high priority, but I think the part that would, the caveat there that you, and I totally take your point that it should be those in the head stop, is that perhaps I can play an advocacy role in conveying that from a National Council level when the remit goes through.
Right,
Well,
but we already have a move and a seconder for the previous wording. So can I ask whether Councillor Bond, I think you moved it, didn't you? Would you be happy with that short form wording?
I am, and I understand where Councillor Crickett's coming from as well, because sometimes at those remit discussions, someone will get up and actually want to open it up for discussion in depth. So you are kind of put in a little bit of a ambiguous situation should that happen as you've outlined. I guess what you're seeking is a firm stance on where we're voting for. So
The trouble is you only get 2 buttons, yea and nay. So.
yeah. So
for.
yeah, I mean, I'm certainly for.
Right, and Councillor Broad, you seconded it. Are you comfortable with the shorter form of words? Okay, so we have at the moment, it's moved and seconded that it is supported, but that it should have a lower priority rating. Councillor Crackett, you have said that you prefer it to have a higher rating. So if you wish, then I will move it as it's been moved and seconded. Well, not move it, I will propose it's moved as it's moved and seconded. If it fails, then we'll change the rating.
Rank the remits separately anyway.
Say that again?
We get to rank the remits after this.
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, we can do that then.
We can juggle if we need to.
Yeah.
Okay, so leave it as it is. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. So then we have remit 5, the devolution of place naming authority to territorial authorities. So, and as officers have recommended to support this remit, but it to be accorded a low priority. Any discussion of that? Yes, Councillor Boyle.
Sorry, could I have some kind of clarification about the priority? So if it becomes, are those that are higher priority more likely to get passed? Is that what we're saying?
Mr. Crackett.
No, it's more, we are stating to the AGM or Local Government New Zealand what our priorities that we would like to see advocated. What that does then, if LGNZ asks for it or if it is recorded at the end, we'll give them a bit of a scope as to what the majority of the collective want LGNZ to focus on first. So if everyone's had say, the devolution of place naming authority to territorial authorities as their top priority, that would form the basis of their advocacy points or the first remit off the rank.
Right, thank you.
So is it the case then, I mean, I've done it once, but I forget. Is it the case then that we've got to rank them?
Which is part of that's
Well,
what we
but
do
I know
next.
low, medium, high, but if we go to kind of 1 to 7, or do we just rank them? Do we simply say low, medium, high as we've been doing,
Says
or have we
we
got
have
to
to rank
actually hard rank them?
That's recommendation 4 of
Okay.
this paper. We rank them,
Okay.
hard rank them, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll keep doing what we're doing at the moment then. So we are talking now about remit 5. Councillor Bond.
Just with remit 5, if we're onto that, I've just got a query. Moving it away from central government down to territorial authorities with name, placing or areas, was there some type of financial messaging to go with that? Like at the moment it costs central government to look after this. If there's a move of it being put down to local level, then there's surely going to be some sort of costing around that to take on that role.
Michael.
Through yourself, Chair, that was the noted when the staff were reviewing the remit in relation to it, and that is the one that, from a staffing perspective, puts it in the low category. While in principle supportive, we would like to understand the cost implications associated to such a directional shift in relation to the naming.
For me, the biggest issue with it is that we could face an absolute raft of approaches to change the names of things, couldn't we? I mean, what if suddenly we find that we've got, proposals to change pretty much every name in Invercargill, other than street names. How do we actually approach that? It's one thing having the authority; it's another thing having the resource on the questions. Councillor De Vries.
Yeah, I'm somewhat against this remit because I feel that well, maybe it's not, but the process actually should be set up so that, as I understand, there's a committee that receives those applications and makes a judgment. But what I'm not, what I'm unsure on is there any engagement with that committee at a national level to the local councils during those processes? And perhaps we haven't needed to go through this recently, so no one would know. But I think, was it Oraka, Colac Bay might have gone through this process at some stage in the last, kind of 2 decades. Someone be able to advise?
Through yourself, Chair, we haven't actually been through one of these processes in some time in relation to the Invercargill area. From my understanding, from past experience, yes, you are correct in relation to they normally do communicate down, but it's normally a communication of this is what the committee has decided, rather than a communication to consult with the councils. So it hasn't really worked in the way that that's been favourable from a council's perspective in relation to engaging with the community from that perspective. But that's past history. I've got nothing from perspective of the current tenures.
Yeah, actually, I think it's called the Geographical Board or something. That's what it is, isn't it? And for me, this is, places. It's probably more looking at the traditional place names of certain places, and the best people placed to do that are mana whenua. So I believe they already possibly sit in that space on that committee anyway. So I'm not supportive of that being
There is a risk that it politicises the whole process by having councils making decisions on it, I suspect. Other question, Councillor Bond?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I just wanted to also say that I'm against this motion completely on just not having enough information about the financial implications. But the other thing too is that some of this could cause to be quite problematic for us at a local level. If there is a Treaty of Waitangi claim wanting to go back to an original name and it sits in our city, I think that responsibility, because the government negotiated with directly, should sit with the government still. Okay. I think that we are opening ourselves up to a lot of future problems and historical ones that we just simply don't have the expertise to deal with.
Questions? Okay. So we've only had 2 people voted so far suggesting that we should not support this remit. So therefore we might just test that. Councillor Bond, do you want to move that? Do we do not support?
That we vote against this remit.
You do not support. Okay. Seconded. Are you going to second it?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's seconded. Is there any other discussion? So we are asked to not support this. The motion is that we do not support this remit. All those in favour say aye. Against? Councillor Crackett. Motion's carried. Thank you. So then we have remit number 6, which I found extraordinary actually. Enhanced role of government in supporting subnational diplomacy. It is recommended by staff to support this remit, but it to be accorded a low priority. Any discussion of that? Councillor Bond.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm actually really uneasy about this remit as well, given the Minister of Foreign Affairs has been quite vocal in this Parliament and the previous that sister city relationships puts a segue of issues to our government of the day, and that local councils had to be careful about the sister city relationships. So I'm just uncomfortable with how that remit's actually worded and the points of relevance to that remit as well. It's a very uneasy remit to support.
Yeah, I must admit, I've got some fear of the sort of government are only here to help. When it comes to Sister City, I think helping can pretty quickly turn into telling, can't it? Councillor De Vries.
Well, no, I just wanted actually ask, given that Councillor Crackett is sits on the National Council, if she could perhaps give us some further context to what this is and maybe where it has come from and what problem it aims to really solve.
You, Councillor Crackett.
Thank you. I think given that this one has come from the metro sector specifically, it is those bigger cities that have more, your typically stronger international or sister city relations. So the idea is to effectively replicate or a similar service that happens in Australia, where at the moment councils, I guess, are independently left to manage their sister city relations on their own, which there's absolutely benefit in that, but actually having a direct office or a direct link with the foreign affairs officers ensures that those relations are being conducted in a safer, more protected way in terms of foreign relations.
I wonder if we would be charged for it. I suspect that that organisation, whoever they were, would actually be back charged to us. Do we know anything on that?
I wouldn't...
For yourself, Chair, when we haven't been advised what any charging would be associated to it, but it is as noted, it is a metro sector remit, and we, in principle, from supporting the metros, we were supportive in concept in relation to it from working with the ministry, with them working with the ministry bodies, but LGNZ can't look at it from the different components, so it's whether we supported it in total. We had it at a very low priority from our supporting perspective.
Would this be, do we know whether this would be completely ring-fenced with respect to sister cities? Is that very specifically how it would operate? I mean, the concern I have, and it may be that it's, you know, it's completely misplaced concern because it's so specifically sister cities, but we, you know, sometimes get approaches from groups who wish us to take a position on international affairs, and we respond to them that international affairs is not a matter for local councils, and therefore we will not take a position. We have a very obvious one in the case of Palestinians, but we've had others too. Well, certainly people have spoken to me about it. All councils support a motion to condemn, you know, whatever happens to be the thing. And we can always say, look, that's international affairs is not our matter. Does this drag us into this in any way, do you think?
Through yourself, Chair, the sister cities was the existing relationships. It's not actually what the full breadth of the remit is about. The remit is actually about the broader in relation to international diplomacy right across.
Yeah, in which case I probably support Councillor Bond's position of opposing it. Any other discussion? So let's test that. And Councillor Bond, do you want to move that we do not approve that one? I will second it. Other discussion? All those in favour of not supporting that?
Aye.
Against? So someone said you're against it, Councillor De Vries. Thank you. So then we have remit 7, bulk funding of transport activities. So does anybody want to give us some additional information of what that involves? I read it and I must admit I wasn't really clear what was meant by it.
Through yourself, Chair, you probably highlighted the key aspect why we've got a third category on this particular remit, which is abstain. Needs further clarity.
Yeah, I don't know what it means. So let's take that. I'll move that we abstain. That one's seconded by Councillor Demedy. Any other discussion? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Remit 8, improving the LTP audit requirements. So fundamentally, this is to reduce the requirements. Because at the moment they're audited at 2 stages, is that correct? And the proposal is that it should be audited at only 1. Yeah, Councillor Crockett.
Thank you. I'd like to move that we support this remit, and I also wanted to just add that although this has come through as a remit, to Councillor De Vries' point before around what is it that LGNZ should be advocating for on behalf of councils in the Head Stop All reform process, the audit requirements is also forming part of that discussion. So there's a raft of things that that are being advocated for as part of that. This is just what's come through in the remit process.
So you're moving that we support this remit with a high priority? Seconded by Councillor Bond. Any other discussion? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Takes us to remit 9. A fairer approach to uneconomic transport infrastructure funding. It's very hard to oppose a remit that says a fairer, isn't it?
Tricky words.
Now we want a more unfair one.
That's true.
Any discussion of that one? I'm entirely sure what it means, but I'm happy to say that we want a fairer system. Yeah. So did you just move it, Councillor? And did Councillor Crockett just second it?
Sure.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And we agree that's a high priority? No, it's a low priority.
Low.
And we agree that's a low priority. Okay. So then we go back to the beginning and we get to item number 4, and we do have to hard rank them. Okay. So let's do it. So the delegates to this meeting are going to be Councillor Crockett and Councillor Ludlow. So we're not going to spend huge amounts of time talking about what's first, second, third, fourth. So I'm just going to ask them and see whether we agree with them. So,
Through yourself, Chair, I've just been making a note as we've gone through in relation to all of the priority ratings, just so
okay,
I
do you
can
want
start
to
it off.
suggest it? Okay.
You've got
You've
three.
just lost a job.
Remit 3 is very high, so number 1. You've then got 1, 8 and 4 as high, so just your preference on which order they go in.
Well, let's
That's
do
the
it in
first
the order.
decision of those ones.
1, 8 and 4. Yeah, in order. 1, 8 and 4.
8.
8, then 4.
Not
That's-
2?
Is it the dogs and then
I
animal
believe
regulation?
1. We need to
8, 1
was going
and
on what
2.
we'd raised
2
as
is
high.
done as medium high, not high. I've just ranked the high. Then you've got 2 as medium high, it's the only medium high, so that'll be at 5. Then 7. Then 5, 6 and 9 are as your last 3.
Does
Probably
anybody disagree with that ranking?
Can I, yes,
You disagree?
with item 2, I want to remind council that we had our youth councillors come and approach us about their concern about vape retailers being within provisions of where school kids could view and walk past or be enhanced by them at all. I think that should be a high priority, and given the wider public's displeasure, I guess, with vaping, and our medical advisors as well over time, they've given us that the vaping dangers are increasing significantly. So I think, yeah, I'd like to see it higher.
Okay. How much higher?
Very high. High.
I might feel differently, if you'll allow me. No, we've put some pretty serious reform and financial changes as the key priorities for council, and having Remit 2 at number 5 is not devaluing it, because we're not saying we didn't hear what the Youth Council has had to say, and that same pathway is one that alcohol has already been through. But if you had to prioritise, there's a social good that comes from it, but there's some pretty hard financial rationale behind the stuff that sits higher at the moment. So at 5, it's still placed pretty well.
Good to have the debate.
Okay. Councillor Demity?
I don't want to speak on that one, but I just feel 8 should be second the audit. LTP audit stuff is, you know, a real bugbear for staff, and there's a lot of costs associated with that, so I think that should probably...
So, okay, so I doubt there's going to be much debate about that. But Councillor Bond, are you comfortable with Councillor Ludlow's explanation?
Yes, I think it's good sometimes just to test it out, and I'm quite comfortable with what we've just done.
Thank you. Anybody get any other bids for changes? Good. Thank you. Okay, so we are asked to resolve the ranking shown. Will someone move that the ranking shown on the slide is what we ask your delegates to? Thank you, Councillor Demity. Seconded by Councillor De Vries. Any other discussion? All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So the last item, we are asked to note the Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting paper on allowing young elected members and Te Marata to propose remits at future AGMs. I suspect probably most of us never knew they couldn't. So are you moving that, Councillor? You're moving agree?
Yes, I am moving agree, Mayor Tom.
Second.
I think these two key parts of organisations within LGNZ are able to bring as much considered value in proposing remits to LGNZ's AGM, but they still have to go through the remits still have to go through a process. So why wouldn't you give that opportunity when both Yem and Te Marata are both looking for good outcomes for us as a sector?
Okay, so they would still need to be supported at the AGMs. They'll still need to be supported at council and then supported at the AGMs. I think most, as I say, would probably surprised that they cannot already. So you've moved agreed, and Councillor Broad's seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Abstain from that vote.
Okay,
Just
as a
noted.
young member.
No, as the chair of
Yeah,
the young elected
well,
members.
Okay.
So
I'm still happy to. Yeah.
It's not a conflict.
it's an interest, but I mean, it's a very, very apparent interest.
So agreed is carried, and I think that actually brings us to the end of that paper, doesn't it? Okay, so we haven't actually received the report. Will someone move that we receive the report? Thank you, Councillor Demity. Seconded by Councillor Ludlow. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So, takes us to tab 16, the Joint Waste Advisory Group Joint Committee Delegations. Patricia.
Afternoon, councillors. So this paper is actually a request coming from the Waste Advisory Group, the Joint Waste Advisory Group, seeking to put delegations in place. It has operated for a number of years without financial delegations, which has resulted in decisions having to come back to each of the 3 councils. This paper has already been to the 3 councils, the other 2 councils. We are the last council to receive it. So it's actually being requested to improve the efficiency in making some decisions at that committee and speeding up some of the administration. But it's not asking for delegation in relation to its full budget. It should be noted that the cost of the contracts which are administered through that joint committee are excluded from this delegation. So it's simply in relation to approximately, that's why we put the limit is put at 2 million. It just sits currently under 2 million of budget in relation to education, strategy and the likes, budget reallocations, the setting of the administration fee, and the use of surplus reserves, so previous year's surpluses. So it's restricted. ICC staff have requested some further restrictions, which is also a reporting back function when the Joint Committee uses those delegations, that it's reported back, so it shows through from a transparency perspective. So it is goes a little bit further than what the initial request that came from the Joint Committee was. But we reflected on the risk associated with this and how our delegation are written, and suggested that these changes be put in, and that will be reported back to the Joint Committee.
Yeah, Councillor Crackett, you wish to comment?
Yeah, I'm really happy with the changes that have been made. I just wondered with recommendation 3.4, agree to use the reserve funds to the maximum value of 200,000 excluding GST per item, should be per annum, because the intent is that the Joint Committee can choose to, continue our bin inspection schedule for a couple of months longer without having to come all the way back around the cycle, or order another round of bin clips or something without having to go all the way around in another cycle. So the intent is to just have an additional approved small pocket there that's delegated in case such time as that we just want to shift tact away from our approved budget that
So
currently has to go
that's
through.
item 3.2?
Yes,
So
3.4.
you're just pointing out that the word item is
It should be per
misprint,
annum.
it should be annum?
It should be per annum. We don't want per item, because that would mean that we'd have to spend, you'd have delegation to spend exceedingly more.
So you agree with that?
That's fine.
Yeah, no, but I mean, is that your understanding it was per annum?
It didn't have it when I don't think it had it when it came through. It just said 200,000.
Well,
It didn't
yeah.
actually state.
Okay,
It didn't
perfect.
actually state.
Yeah.
That's why when we went through and reviewed it, there was some more work that needed to be.
Well, obviously $2,000 per annum is more restrictive than $200,000 per item, so, you know.
I'm more than
if
happy to
the
go per annum.
representative's happy with that, then
No, that's fine.
that's what we'll change it to. So I've only really got one question, Patricia. Does this in any way change WasteNet's accountability with respect to the recycling contract?
No, through you, Chair, it doesn't, because WasteNet is not a party to the recycling contract.
Okay.
ICC is the lead party on that contract outside of the WasteNet arrangements.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Dermody, you had a question?
Yeah, so just to be clear, so the delegation around the 200,000, that's per annum to spend the reserves?
Yes.
Okay, so I feel a little bit uncomfortable about that, because those reserves have been built up by ratepayers, haven't they? And so I think any decision to use reserves should come back to the council. I don't think it should be delegated to this committee, because they are ratepayer funds.
So I'll just answer that one first, Chair. So to come back to that, I considered that, but the business plan still has to come back to each of the three councils to be approved. So that business plan would show that they have to use, in some years they've used significantly more than 200,000 as part of the business plan to undertake the activities that they wanted to do. So there is visibility back through to the three councils about how those reserves are being used each year. This is if it's during a year they needed to do something additional, that they could go 200,000 worth.
Through yourself, Chair, just one point of clarification there is that the revenues associated to the WasteNet joint committee is actually through the levy itself. That's a bulk of their revenue stream. Yes, most of that charge does go to the individual councils, and the councils are paying for that through rates component in relation to their fees, but they're not the only contributor in relation to that. There's commercial activity as well that levy is being booked against, so therefore it's not completely going against the ratepayers associated to that, so it's not actually a one where it's a council's rate side revenue making that call. You'd have to take into account all the other components, hence why it's historically been a waste net reserve. It's a nuance in relation to our joint committees, and that reserve has been historically been decisions made by WasteNet and then ratified or supported at the individual councils.
It's still ratepayer money somewhat. I'd be comfortable and suggest perhaps that what Patricia said should be highlighted in 10, that agrees to the reserve funds to maximum value of 200,000 and documented, or some sort of word documented within the business plan, the annual business plan. That's
Under
I
5.
think the per annum's been changed against the wrong number there. I think the per annum should have gone into 10 rather than, the numbering has gone. I think it's per annum on, oh yeah. It's not per annum on the budget, it's per annum on number 4, not number 2.
Oh, it's per annum number, not per annum number 2. You've lost me.
Oh, it's per annum.
So in order to give clear direction to the committee, I think I would ask that it says what Patricia stated, that it's documented in the business plan. So it's very clear that we're giving permission to do that, subject to it being in the business plan, or the annual plan, or whatever it was called.
It's a business plan.
Business plan, yeah. Annual business plan too, right?
I think so, yes.
So are you saying provided, I mean, is this additional words to 4, provided it is included in the business plan?
It must be included in the annual business
Well, provided would be the same. Provided it is already included.
plan. It's included in the business plan, yeah.
Through yourself, Chair, I'm not sure that would work if you work through the delegations in order in relation to it. It's approve the plan, adjust within the plan, approve the levy, which funds the plan. The last line is to say, if you need to draw any further funds, you can draw them from the reserve up to 200,000 before going back to the councils. That's what the order of delegations is sequenced of. So the plan is approved to do the funding, and then this is to draw from the reserve. That's what they're asking for, is to be able to, if they're hitting their budget, that they can actually continue for another 200,000 before going back to councils.
So it's the reverse, actually, what you've suggested.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not what we're told.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is actually potentially could just go without any oversight from the council, which is my concern.
So are you concerned enough that you would wish to propose that we delete that?
I understand what's trying to be achieved, but I think, you know.
Well, I'll leave you to think about maybe a change of words then if you.
Mistakes.
I'll come back to you, Councillor Crackett.
I just want to highlight that all of, although yes, there is a component of it that's ratepayer money, that all of the additional surplus that sits in the WasteNet reserve is specifically ring-fenced for WasteNet activity. The joint committee of 6 can't just go off rogue and draw reserves willy-nilly to fund anything that specifically does not purpose our goals and our waste minimisation plan, which we also have passed and ratified at council a couple of weeks ago. So any decision that within that $200,000 envelope, and look, we're not saying we're going to ever or often pull it up at all, but if there is something that happens, we need we need more bin clips, for example, because we've completely exhausted them and there's been a weather event. It's to give that level of discretion so that we can action something that furthers the business plan and the WMMP without having to go through, all right, now Gore has to agree with it, Southland has to agree with it, we have to agree with it, and the matter is $5,000. You know, it's just to tidy that up.
Yes, again?
I'm going to vote against it. I just don't think it has a level of, it's too much, it's too loose.
All of the reporting comes back to council,
And
by
we've
the
been
way.
told sort of various versions of sort of what's going to happen. Buy a lot of bin cups for 200,000.
Michael?
No,
You put your hand up.
No, just was actually just scratching my head on that one, but not about the item themselves, Mayor. I've got nothing further to add. It is what it says, and it's in that order. So hopefully, I'll provide the clarity of the steps that lead to that.
Is it the amount that you're concerned with? Because you would think if it was $1, for example, you'd want to be right.
No, no, no.
200,000
Yeah, it is, yeah.
becomes. Do you might propose a different number? Would you be more comfortable if it was 50,000, for example?
So the number, if you want some understanding where the number 200,000 come from, it roughly is working out at about 10%, 20% of the, no, 10% of the, of your budget. So you're allowed a budget, they were allowed 2 million to approve the budget. So it's 10%.
They could
So
technically
they-
go
so-
over
so-
budget every year by 10%. The reserves aren't going to last long.
As long as the reserves are there to do it, of course. That's the,
They have to have reserves, so that,
Through yourself, Chair, can I just ask my GM to clarify what's the total spend in relation to WasteNet, because that's what the figure should be calculated on?
the total spend there, they've got between 23 and 24 million is the total spend. The spend that they've been given delegation on is up to 2 million.
okay.
To do the budget is 2 million.
So $200,000 is 10% of 2 million. That's where the number comes from. So look, I think we'll test that, Councillor Dermody, and if it fails, then we can come back. Patricia, did we cut you off? Were you still speaking?
I'm thinking we don't need the provided, it's included in the business plan, following the discussion that the way how the process works, it will already, this is costs that are not in the business plan.
Sure. No, that's right. I think we changed that. Okay, well, look, let's go back and work through the recommendations. Do we need to take them one at a time? I don't think we do really, do we? Councillor Crackett, do you want to move all of them?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Will someone second?
Right, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Is there any... No, you're asking a question.
I just wanted to ask a quick question though. Sorry. Given the reason why this document's come to us, and with the information and the supporting attachments, how many times has the fact that they don't hold delegated authority for that budget, has it caused significant issues? Because we're being asked to vote on something, but we don't know how high those issues actually have been, because it's not articulated in the report.
From memory, I can remember at least 2 or 3 times in the last 3 years.
One's a term.
It's
What, sorry?
the
You're
amount
prepared
of
to
time.
second, did you say?
No, I just said, so that's 2 or 3 times per term that there has been a significant issue.
In the last 3 years. So in the last
May
2
I clarify that?
Councillor Crackett?
I don't believe, yeah, to your point, we've had to do it 2 to 3 times, I would say, but they're not extraordinary amounts. It's not like another $600,000. It's been nominal amounts just to execute part of the strategy. It's not, yeah, it's not like, yeah, sorry, I'll leave it at that.
So there is a level of discomfort. But we will test it though, and we can see whether it passes. Did you just second it?
I was about to, yes.
Yeah. So we have a move on the seconder for all of numbers 1 through to 5. Is there any other discussion? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, and you wish to have that recorded?
Yes, please.
Councillor Dermody did, and you, Councillor Bond. Okay then. Thank you. Well, that's carried. So it takes us through to the Chief Executive's report.
Thank you, through yourself, Chair. Nothing else to add to the contents of the report, and noting I've got my GM of Consenting and Environment here, which the main topic is in relation to the buildings side of the organisation, so if there's any questions, happy to take any and most defer them to my GM.
Any questions? So we are asked then to receive the Chief Executive's report. Will someone move that? Thank you, Councillor Bond, seconded by Councillor Boyle. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of the public session. Will someone move that we move into public excluded? Thank you, Councillor Lush. Seconded, did I see you putting your hand up, Councillor Broad? Is there any discussion of that? All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. So thank you for everyone who has joined us on live stream today. And